Hey, we're in our fourth week of looking into the Hebrew library, a stack of our library commonly known as the Old Testament. Again, the first week we dealt with the first 5 books. The second, third week we dealt with the 21 books of prophecy. This week we are exploring the third section of the Hebrew library called the writings. Now, the writings, I think, can best be sort of defined as a miscellaneous collection of 13 books, a diverse collection of the thoughts, narratives, and proclamations, which, according to the Council of Jamnia in 90 AD, these writings, these 13 writings, stood the test of time, the truth, describing from a human perspective the journey of faithfulness. Now, the prophets are included as those through whom God spoke. In other words, from the divine perspective, this is what faithfulness is all about. The writings are from the human perspective. This is what the journey of faithfulness involves and includes. Now, I want to point out that 3 of the writings were questioned and problematic in terms of their inclusion in the library. First, the Song of Solomon is a passionate, explicit narrative of physical love. What's it doing in the writings? Ecclesiastes is a profound, pessimistic exposition that life is fleeting like a vapor, fleeting and temporary. The theme of the book is vanity, vanity, all is vanity, all is in vain. What's that doing in the Hebrew library? And then there's the book of Esther. In Esther, there's no reference to the existence or name of God. What in the world is that doing as a part of the Hebrew library? Why? Because this was a valid representation of the journey of faithfulness from the human perspective with the Song of Solomon. It affirms that physical love, romance, was not counter to, but an expression of the love that human beings intimately desired to have with one another. Indeed, Ecclesiastes, often persons of faith facing the extreme conditions of life, experience life to be like a vapor, light, fleeting, in terms empty of meaning. Life is in vain. The valid experience of persons of faith facing extreme conditions of life. Indeed, Esther, faithfulness included times and human experiences without any reference to God. You see, these 3 stood the test of time because they represented valid human experiences in the journey of faith. Now, this week and next, we're going to explore several of these writings which, like these three, tell the story of faithfulness from the human perspective, not from the perspective of the divine. Now, the clearest expression of the human perspective of faith is the longest book in the library, and that is the book of Psalms. To understand this book is to consider, if you will, the United Methodist hymnal. We have it in our pews, the United Methodist hymnal. And this hymnal is the poems, prayers, songs of the people called United Methodist. It includes songs of thanksgiving, songs of lament, songs of comfort, assurances of God's faithfulness, trust, deliverance, etc., etc., etc. And I've just described the book of Psalms in the Hebrew Library. It is a collection of writings compiled over the centuries which reflect the journey of faith from the perspective of faithful believers in the one God of compassion, mercy, justice, and steadfast love. If you will, the book of Psalms is a public presentation of the life of God's faithful people. Over the span of my career, which encompasses quite a few years, I've often observed that if one wants to understand the faith of another, listen to the prayers and listen to the songs they sing. Now, in the same way, if you want to understand the faith of the Hebrew people, read the book of Psalms, which is included in the Hebrew Bible as one of the writings which represent the journey of faithfulness from the human perspective. Let me just point out to you how it is the manifestation of faith of the Hebrew people. Psalm 1 describes the two ways to live. Psalm 23 describes the faithful journey to the universal experience of death. Psalm 100 describes the joy of a thankful life. Psalm 150, the final hymn, expresses the final human response to God. Praise. When you read the book of Psalms, you're on a journey of understanding the journey of faith of the Hebrew people, including all of the different elements of that journey. Indeed, to just remind you of that, I would just invite you to take the 10 minutes to read Psalm 1, Psalm 23, Psalm 100, and Psalm 150. Because the Psalms is the most vivid illustration of why the miscellaneous collection of writings is a part of the Hebrew Library. Now, often the Hebrew Library is referred to as the Torah and the prophets, but that's unfair, an unfair representation of the Hebrew Library. For the Hebrew people, their library was not complete in 90 AD nor is it complete in 2023 without the writings. Faithfulness, the journey of faith from the human perspective. Now, next week, we're going to continue this journey with the writings as we explore other writings, including the books of Job and Proverbs. Indeed, we visit the Hebrew library, remembering that it's not complete without the writings, including the beauty of Psalms and the journey of Job and the accumulated wisdom of the ages in Proverbs. You probably haven't looked at the writings as a substantial component of the Hebrew library, the 13 books, but as we do this, here are some questions that are helpful to me. First of all, the writings include controversial understandings and perspectives concerning the nature of God and the journey of faithfulness. Does the existence of these documents in the library disturb or enhance your appreciation of the Hebrew library? Secondly, what is your response of the book of Psalms defined as the public hymnal of the Hebrew people? And finally, what is your response to these three controversial writings, Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, and Esther, being included in the Hebrew library? We'll continue the journey with the writings next week. Thank you for joining us in our visit to our library.